The Joel Fernandez Show is a talk show channeled spontaneously from source to edify and help raise the vibrations of truthers, starseeds, Christic alchemists, and others who have seen through this illusionary matrix into messianic consciousness by discussing hidden knowledge, higher dimensions, and manifesting so that we can shine our light for everyone to see and co create the earth that we know we actually deserve to live in. Don't! I gotta go! I'm working on the show!
Here we go.
Welcome to episode 25 of The Joel Fernandez Show. I'm your host, Joel Fernandez, and today I'm doing things a bit differently because I'm doing a lot of renovations, both inside and out, but today I'm actually... It's gotten windy. You know what, I came out here for this time, so I'm gonna do this. And I'm just gonna throw my hair back and we're gonna keep going because that's the way it is. Anyway, we are just gonna have a nice little chat. The primary purpose of this channel is actually to wake people up to the real purpose as to like why you're here. What are you here to accomplish? And I know I share a lot of like self-development techniques, like a lot of stuff comes from my own personal experience. Like, I know I do a lot of guided meditations. I talk a lot about manifesting and visualizing. But, you know, like, I've just been raising myself to new heights. And the more I raise myself, the more I realize that a lot of the things that we think we need are actually just holding us down in a paradigm that is not taking us as high as we possibly could go. And when we accept a lot of these processes in order to raise our vibration, then we're actually limiting ourselves to those processes. So I'll give you some examples that actually hit home really, really strongly for me recently. I mentioned in previous videos about like I had a really profound experience where it was crazy. I'm going to go into real detail on it in a future video just talking about that. But yeah, like I literally had a near-death experience. I came to face literally with Source and everything, like from my purpose, why I'm here, and how I can actually bring that into fruition. Like it all came out and was communicated to me on a level that I never anticipated before, but now I can actually see that there's just new heights. Like however we thought we were raising, we can't limit ourselves to that. So like I know a lot of the videos that I've posted before, like with meditating, just certain techniques with visualizing, of course utilizing different plants and crystals and all that stuff, these all have a place, don't get me wrong, but we can't limit ourselves to rely on these things. We actually can dictate, you know, even like predictive astrology, I've talked about this before. We actually have the ability to manifest despite what astrology and all these trends are actually shoving in our face. We can actually manifest completely the opposite. We can create mini bubbles of reality around us where we are literally walking in like these, I don't know, spheres of invincibility. My whole point with this is actually to say like we can actually regain the perspective from the Garden of Eden. And in the Garden of Eden, we're not ruled by, you know, cause and effect of the physical world around us. And we're not tilling the ground and like working for our bread. Literally all our food is provided free from, you know, off the trees. And, you know, we communicate with nature, with the animals on these levels that we couldn't even imagine before from the physical realm. But when we tap into this, actually who we are, when we actually tap into who we are, and we're not limited by circumstances or tools or mechanisms or whatever techniques, we actually tap into that source, like in our hearts, we can actually regain a perspective that just, it's astronomically different. It's exponentially different. So yeah, like my only purpose is to actually help us all to harness this power that's intrinsically within us. And we can actually tap into this and eat of the fruit of the tree of life once again. But the way to do that is, like, we got to look at what the metaphor of the Garden of Eden is actually talking about. Because to access the tree of life, we have to realize that the only way we lost access to the tree of life was by eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So that knowledge, that actual knowledge, was the knowledge that you will be like gods. And that actually is the paradigm that, you know, you can actually manifest whatever you want. That's egotistic, but it still is applying the intrinsic ability within you as a creative fraction of the breath of God. But it's coming from an egotistic standpoint. So that literally is what is self-enlightenment, rather than tapping into source within and seeing what source's vision for you is. Because when you actually embody that, you'll be more fulfilled. When you're egotistic and you're coming at it from, like, what can I see around me that appeals to me, rather than what's inside of me that really appeals to me, you're going to be struggling with the manifested creation, the physical reality. And by doing so, you're actually just digging yourself deeper into that egotistic perspective. And that's what it is. Like, the serpent never had a real truth to begin with. It only twisted the lie that, you know, yes, you do have the breath of Elohim in you, but in order to take from that true state of being within us, it was taken outside of us and said, you can realize yourself and be as gods. This is also summed up in the statement, know thyself. It doesn't take you all the way, because you're still looking at it from me versus it, or I versus the manifested created reality out there. And that's the lie of the serpent. And of course, from the egotistic perspective of this manifested reality, that serpent represents the Kundalini energy that when you awaken it, it will actually realize you as a god. But you don't need that, because the breath in you is actually what creates physical reality. And you can do that regardless of what is actually already manifested around you. But you're not doing it from an egoic perspective. You're doing it from a heart perspective. And that heart is literally source bubbling up through you and manifesting out into the physical world, that manifested creation of a life experience, not just for you, but of course for everybody around you. And that tree of knowledge that was actually portrayed as the key to enlightenment, of course, talk about the psychedelics. So in using these tools in order to regain your perspective of higher consciousness, you're actually limiting the higher consciousness that's already inside of you by relying on external stimuli. And another thing people say is that the fruit of the tree of knowledge is actually sex. So when you partake of sex, you're actually draining that energy. That's not true, because way back in the very beginning, when Adam was first created in the story, the very first commandment that he was given was to be fruitful and multiply, to actually engage in this system of creation. But the difference was that in that state, Adam, or the human, wasn't created as just another animal, that the animals were created separately. And through this whole process of eating of the tree of knowledge, that actually brought Adam to a lower level than the animals. And that's why right now, currently, humanity has these physical bodies where we actually engage in sexual reproduction. But the actual reproduction that humanity was created with the ability to procreate with was actually at a much higher level, even higher than those of angelic beings. In fact, it's even said in some of the traditional accounts that the angels were actually so jealous of Adam when he was created, and how he reproduced, that they actually wanted to take notes. They actually wanted to copy that in order to start reproducing of themselves. And that escalated when the Nephilim actually came and started to interbreed with humans. And there's a whole other story on how that went down. But I just want to say, like, I'm going to keep this episode really short because I got a lot of work to do. Like, I'm really busy this month with the renovations. And like I said, just doing some cleaning, not just in the house, but actually like inside in my mind, and actually taking things to the next level. If it's noisy with the traffic, like, don't mind that. Like, I live on a main road, so that's just the way it is. But I'm filming out here just to change things up. But I'm just looking at my notes here. So I want to make sure I get everything in, because this thing hit me like a ton of bricks, and I realized, like, we don't have to be limited by the physical reality. Like, of course, crystals and plants and all these things have their place. But all this stuff, like, even if you're looking to like channeled messages or any kind of manifested systems just to predict outcomes, you're subjecting yourself to that. Even if they present themselves as angels, and technically real angels, they don't communicate. They're beings of order. They're not social beings. So if you really come into contact with like actual angels and you try to have a conversation with them, they don't converse with you, but they follow orders. But the beings that actually tell you things, let's just say they're posing as angels and they have a message, and yeah, you could take it with a grain of salt, but you're better off going straight to source for those kind of messages. I know some people might take this wrong, but really channeled messages are nowhere near the potential that actual prophetic utterances have, and we all have the capacity for tapping in and having these divine utterances. You know, ultimately, thinking that there's a source field of just pantheistic consciousness is nowhere near actually communicating with the personality that source or God actually is, and actually communicating with you on a very personal level, that actually wants and craves really a real relationship with you. You know, that can't be manipulated with crystals or psychedelics or asanas or mantras or any of that stuff. Literally, all you have to do is just have a conversation, and source is always there. No matter how far you get down the dark path, even, source will always be there just to communicate with you and bring you back right into his arms and just say, you know what, I'm here for you. You come from me, and I've got a plan for you. Let's do this to the best possibility you could possibly tap into. So yeah, like, the point of this whole channel is, as I raise my vibration, I want to help encourage others to do so. But in what I learned recently, like, there's so much more. And even like the Kundalini is just a mundane expression of the actual move of Holy Spirit. Like, actually trying to harness, like, raising the Christic oils inside of you. Yeah, I've posted videos on that, and that's all well and good. You want to eat healthy, you want to have a good diet, but that has nowhere near the effect that actual Christ in you will change your actions from the inside out. It will change your desires. It will change your conscience from the inside out, and you'll find yourself making better decisions and just doing things differently just by default. You know, light language, for example, that's all well and good, but that's nowhere near actually tapping in and speaking the actual language Adam spoke with the Creator in the Garden of Eden. That's what we're heading back to, and that's what I'm all about. Like, sure, you can get hung up on your crystals or your yoga or whatever, but there's a much higher level where we don't need to rely on that. And honestly, think back at your success rate with whatever it is, you know, even your visualizations. What's your success rate? Is it working? Because if it's not really working, maybe you're not doing it right. You know, we can all strive for these heights when we're at a lower level. Yes, we want to get higher, but once you have that breakthrough, you realize that, you know what, you've been trying to do it with physical means, or even, you know, even these guides and angelic beings, they're still created beings, and ultimately they're below us because they take orders from us. They present themselves as messengers so that you rely on them and start listening to them, and then they can start telling you what to do later on down the road. They're playing a mean game of chess, and they're non-physical, so they can actually think in a much broader perspective than we can. But when we realize who we actually are inside of ourselves, that we're not limited to even that non-physical limitations. We can rise above that, and we can literally command things from that state of authority. We can literally have an influence that can transform the world from the inside out, from our inside out, and all of a sudden it's just like we're living in a completely different reality. You know, and a lot of this, of course, is coming from my own experience with what I experienced during my near-death experience. And man, that was like really shattering. Like, I honestly thought life was actually, you know what? It was more real than anything else. And honestly, like, I want to help people. I really want, you know, like, I'm raising my vibration. And the higher you get, the more you realize just what's holding you back. So you gotta shed what's holding you back. No matter how much it's helped you in the past, it can't help you once you know, step up to the next story. We really can break through, and we really can achieve, but you just gotta do it in your heart, you know? I'm not saying you gotta do it my way. I'm just sharing what worked for me and what I learned during this experience. And like, yeah, I don't want to be limited. Like, if I don't have my crystals around me, or if I don't have whatever plants or even cannabis, right? I don't use it the way I used to use it. But even then, like, it's helped me profoundly. It's helped me profoundly just expand my awareness, to think outside the box, to tap into creativity, and to actually have the incentive to raise myself to new heights. That's where it all started. And I'm not dissing that, but I'm saying, like, even after some time, like, I shed the habitual usage of that, because back then it was only serving to, you know, relieve pain and take me to a height when the circumstances around me were keeping me down. But once I shed that, I didn't need it, and I raised to a new level where I would use it intermittently. Now I don't even use it at all. And in fact, when I did it for the 420 episode, that was just like one day out of, I don't know when the last time I did it before that was. And I don't know when I'm going to do it again. If I don't even care, because right now I'm so tapped in with source energy, like, inside of me. Like, really, none of that matters anymore. Really, like, I'm not limiting myself to any of that. Like, source is giving me way more than I could even imagine before that. So, like, I'm really stepping forward, and I want to bring everybody else with me. So I'm gonna go back inside. So I'm gonna check you guys in a bit. We'll see you guys later. All right, we're just chilling in my room right now. Like I said, the studio is under renovation. Like, it's probably gonna be a few episodes till I get everything set up there. I don't even know how much I'm gonna change it up, but seriously, like, new heights, absolute manifestation, actual connection with source, and just walking that pure potential That's what it's all about. That's what I'm all about, and that's where I'm going. So if you like it, you can follow me. But like right now, I'm really gonna focus on those reasoning videos because like Source is just giving me downloads all the time. And that is what I'm really gonna focus on for now at least. Even I know that that's not the end goal. Source is really stepping things up, and I know that that's just going to lead to something else. But on top of that, like, the thing is, guys, YouTube is really screwing around. Like, I know they've capped my subscriber count because it's like 850, and then it gets to 851, and then it will go down to 848, and then it will go up to 850 and 851, and then back down to 847, and it just stays like give or take +5 out of that. And the funny thing is, people are subbing. People are subbing. I'm getting new sub, and people are commenting that too. People like the videos, and like thumbs up galore. So it's not confusing because I know what YouTube is doing, and I know some of the stuff that I've spoken of in the Joel Fernandez show, particularly with politics and even the media and how they present the pandemic, like, and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, like some of those test kits, man.
देखिए कितना सावधानी से बना रहे हैं बच्चे पीपी कोविड टेस्ट किट जिसको गवर्नमेंट इतना महत्व देती है और इन लोगों के जान के साथ खिलवाड़ हो रहा है। ये मजबूर हैं, मगर जो लोग इन्हें बनाने के लिए देखिए कितना सावधानी से बना रहे हैं बच्चे पीपी कोविड टेस्ट किट जिसको गवर्नमेंट इतना महत्व देती है और इन लोगों के जान के साथ खिलवाड़ हो रहा है। ये मजबूर हैं, मगर जो लोग इन्हें बनाने के लिए दे रहे हैं कारखाने वाले, सोचिए कितनी बड़ी गलती कर रहे हैं लोगों के साथ। जब इस तरह जमीन में पहले से ही रखा हुआ है और खराब हाथों से पैक हो रहा है, तो सोचिए टेस्ट में क्या पॉजिटिव देगा कि नेगेटिव देगा।
चाय खत्म कर लो।
I mean, it's supposed to be sterile, and look at that. So I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole, but I don't care. And YouTube has updated their like scanning technology or whatever. When you upload a video, it scans it completely for copyrighted stuff. And it's funny because some of the songs I put, I'd actually suspect YouTube to censor them and say, yeah, this is copyrighted. It doesn't censor that, but it will censor other clips. And sometimes those clips, like in my last episode, there was a song that I really wanted to share, just talking about the nature of like logos. It's a message of love. You can't exhaust the words of Source. And I had a really perfect song, like from a cartoon back from my childhood that I saw like when I was really young. But it was perfect, and YouTube censored that one, but they didn't censor the songs by Carmen, which was kind of surprising, but whatever, man.
It's more than ink and paper. It's more than words to read. It's a letter of love from up above. Special delivery.
That's how things are right now. I am posting the shows on Rumble, and I probably will put all my videos up on there for now because Rumble doesn't censor this kind of stuff. And if for now at least things are working out there, but man, things are, how can I say, just we got to step up our game. And I don't mean like we got to post more things. I don't mean we got to convince more people. Like, I don't care about that, If I really cared about that, I would stop making these shows, and I would really do whatever I could to hack the YouTube algorithm and really step up that game. But really, none of that matters. What matters is that I take care of myself, and by taking care of myself, am able to provide a better example for others, those who are ready to come across my message, because those who are ready will come across my message. They will. It's inevitable because Source will line them up. They will set their intention and they will actually manifest coming across this information and being of the right frequency, being of the right wavelengths to actually be able to hear it and assimilate it and actually take it in and bring it to pass. We are moving out of the era of the tree of knowledge, but in order to do so, we have to shed that tree of knowledge. Once we do that, we meet the cherubim with the flaming swords guarding the way to the tree of life. We address them, we take care of them, we clear the path, and we break through that veil. In the Temple of Solomon, what was embroidered on the veil? The cherubim, the cherubim, if you're pronouncing it like traditional English, but it's cherubim. And the symbolism of the Temple of Solomon, it's all symbolic of the Garden of Eden. The walls are gold with reliefs of palm trees and the angels, you know. The menorah itself is a symbol of the tree of life. You have the altar of incense, which is burning these resins. And of course, the table of showbread, everything that is set up. And even when you walk in, you're walking towards the west. Well, guess what? When Adam was expelled from the garden, he left through the east side. And it's at that east gate that the cherubim were stationed. So to get back in, you got to turn around and head back west. But that's all symbolic. It really happens in here. It really happens in here. And once we tap in and really make the change there, the physical reality will just mirror that, because physical reality is the manifested version. It's like the shadow, right? And our projection of consciousness or our intentions or, you know, the mechanisms which we manifest by, and I do share that in this channel. And, you know, I'm just stepping up my game now. I'm just explaining these things on a much deeper perspective that actually I saw from a better vantage point. But once we step that part up, the physical shadows will mirror back what the substance of our souls have changed into. That's why we can't be limited by physical circumstances, because even the crystals that you're using, man, those are physical circumstances. You know, even if you do yoga or meditations, or you're relying on breathing techniques, or waking up and doing your morning meditations, and that's all well and good. Get you in the right space, in the right state of mind. But you can't rely on that in order to be that state of mind. You really got to just intend, I am going to be this state of mind regardless of whatever circumstances are there. Because when I was working full time, I would do meditations. I would be listening to Abraham Hicks all morning. Like, if I could get away with it before the store opened, like, I'd have my headphones in even though I wasn't supposed to have them in. And I'd be listening to this. But if I didn't do that, I felt like something was missing. And then my whole day would be me trying to get back to that state of, you know, peace or like manifestability. But really, we are already capable of just envisioning it and actually seeing it to be. If we're limiting ourselves, we're going to be subject to that. And actually, as long as we're feeling like we need something to take us to that height, we're going to be lost. We're going to be struggling. And for that whole period that we're struggling, we're going to be manifesting counter to what we want to manifest, because we're going to be trying to get there. By trying, we're actually admitting that we're not there. So I learned that the hard way. There were things that I wanted to manifest back then. Like, I went crazy. And that's why I got into this manifesting science. I started researching consciousness. I started really trying to get in and figuring out, how can I have what I know I want? And I deserve it. I'm here to actually get these things so that I can take the next step and build more of the life that I know that not only I want, but I deserve, that will help other people, right? So this whole process just started to unfold, and man, like, it just wasn't working out. And I wondered, like, what is going on? What is going on? So this whole process really started to play out, and I realized, like, I can't be limited by what I don't have. I got to know that I have it already in my soul. And by imagining it, by visualizing it, by, setting it out into reality, I can actually bring it forth and actually see these things into fruition before they come into fruition. And then they do come into fruition as a life experience. That's the process of creating life experience. We are this breath of Elohim in a physical body. And that physical body cannot be limited by other physical bodies, because then it will be subject to those physical manifested bodies. But we have to realize that we are this breath of Elohim, and breath of Elohim creates by the spoken word, or the logos. And that logos is the creative aspect of who we are. And we can literally command the angelic hosts. We can command, of course, other created beings like animals and plants, and all of these kingdoms are below man. And that's when you really get down to it, and we're talking biblical cosmology here, when you really get down to it, the whole reason why Lucifer fell was because he was jealous of what man was created as. Because man was created with free will, and angels were not. And man was created to actually be this Elohim in flesh, crimson covered spirit. And that crimson is blood. Angelic beings have no regard for blood. They have no, and you can see that with the demonic activity that's going on in the world today. What with war and, the slaughter of animals, and of course the slaughter of the unborn. We could talk about all of that, because these beings, they don't care for blood because they don't have it. They don't have regard for blood. But actual blood itself is a manifestation of God's blood, which is light, mixed with the blood of the earth, which is red earth. And that is what Adam means. Adam, when you break down the Hebrew symbolism of the word, literally means blood shining through the face. And that original state of man, like I said, was not created on par with animals. It was actually this completely different kingdom where the blood itself was light. And that's why when that state of awareness fell, by partaking of the tree of knowledge, he looked at himself and he says, oh my goodness, I'm naked, because that light wasn't there as a covering. That light wasn't there as a covering. And now we make these clothes of linen and all that stuff now. But really, what I'm trying to say is that we have to shed what we think that the tree of knowledge is giving us to get to that higher vibration, that higher state of being, where we can tap into God consciousness and realize that God consciousness is already in us. And when we shed those things, then we'll really start to embody true connection with Source, because Source is in here, not in any physical object. And I'm not just saying it's psychedelics, right? I'm talking about physical reality. I'm talking about relying on manifested reality. This show turned out quite different than I thought it would. We'll just see how these shows go in the future, because like I said, I'm doing renovation and I'm not at my computer a whole lot. And in fact, I'm not at my computer anymore right now. I'm really busy with the music and the art and everything. Relationships are completely different. And I'm learning. Sources really bringing knowledge, experiential knowledge. Because you can sit, like, no condemnation with YouTube, right? These videos are going to be on YouTube for one thing. You can sit and learn a whole lot. I learned a whole lot just watching, like, Joseph Ally, Abraham Hicks, Bashar back in the day. But now that I realize, like, they're physical beings and I got to rely on Source for my information, Source has opened new pathways in experiential learning that are just beyond any of that logical learning. Because, there's no end to writing books. You can just keep going, and logic and reason and arguments and just all of that discussion can just carry on indefinitely. And a lot of people that spend their time doing that, especially like coming from the religious institution background, I don't call them churches because they're just religious institutions that capitalize. They don't own the word church. Church is something way, way beyond what they're monopolizing. But what was I saying? Like, there's heights in experiential learning that Source will bring you. You just tap into your heart, and yeah, all you have to do is say, Source, I want to learn from you, and I want to learn who you are, the way you are, what you are, from you. Speak to me yourself. Like, don't tell me like, oh, you're so and so religion or so and so paradigm or so and so reasoning. Just Source. Go in, and Source will open the doors and actually reveal Source to you. That's the bottom line. We all have to have that connection with Source, and then no one will be able to stand in that gap. No one will be able to mediate and tell you what Source is saying. Like I said in one of my reasoning sessions, there will be a day when prophets, like right now, prophets are kind of picking up because people want to know what the truth is behind the media, because they can't really trust everything the media is saying right now, especially. But there will be a day when everybody's going to tap into that connection with Source, and Source is going to be speaking to each of us individually. That other people talking on behalf of Source just won't cut it. It won't cut it. And in fact, it will be more of a sacrilege or a blasphemy then, because everybody will have this connection, and they'll all be able to realize that Source is really talking to me. I don't need you to tell me what Source is saying, even if Source told you that, even if it's true, even if it can be verified through not only your experience but my experience, and you just look out into the world and it's verifiable. It's not going to cut it, because that conviction with communicating with Source will be inside all of us on such a high level, on such a true level, pure level, and continuous stream, a continuous download of info. It's just not going to cut it. And that's what I mean by raising your vibration as high as you can. That's where we're headed. That's the tree of life. That's the Garden of Eden.
Free your mind.
So I really do love you guys. I'm going to end the show. This one's a bit short, but that's okay, because sometimes it's, the short, concise messages that really pack the most punch. So we'll see how this show continues on. But Joel Fernandes show is not going anywhere, because Joel Fernandes ain't going anywhere. If it's not on YouTube, I'm going to post updates as to where you can find it. But the reasoning sessions will still be up here, and whatever videos Source guides me to make, whatever information Source wants me to share, I'm just a vessel, guys. And I want everybody to step into that pure capacity and embody their true calling. Create the world we know we're deserving of, so that future generations will really have something to look back at and say, wow, those guys really made a change, not just for themselves, not just for the people of their generation, but 2, 3, 5, 10, 20 generations down the road even. They're still looking back at us and saying, wow, they really dealt with their circumstances admirably. So I love you guys. I'll see you in the next episode. Joel's signing out once again. Agape, salaam, namaste.